Good evening and welcome. I'm Hayley Coxon and this is the Spirit of Motorsport TV. And tonight we start a new series dedicated in honouring motorsport photography called Through Your Lens. Now, when we launched very successfully, it blew us away how big it went when we first launched back in the TT last year in June 2020. We also launched a great group called Through Your Lens to support photographers in exposing their work, sharing their work, supporting each other, and really getting their work out there. And so now we are honoured to invite one of the best on the planet, we would say, a fellow Manxman as well, based out there in the US of A, to launch this series with us, share maybe some of his tips and tricks and some of his favourite shots from throughout his almost 30 years in the business. So make sure you share this with your friends, tag them in. If they've not tuned in already, let them know. We are live for at least the next hour. Thank you everyone for joining us already. We have Lorraine Elizabeth Nelm saying good evening to you too. John Koshersky saying howdy from the American time change. It confused me. Hello, John. I hope you're well. Andy Karush saying evening, everyone. Phil Nelm saying good evening. And Robert Edel saying, hi, Colin. So invite your friends, get involved in the chat. We are going to be sharing some amazing shots this evening. Nigel's going to be sharing some of his stories behind those incredible shots. So feel free to fire any questions our way, whether you're interested in photography or simply motorsport. Just don't be shy. Get involved in the chat, all right? So good evening, Brian Spooner. Welcome. Lovely to see you joining us once again. So without further ado, let's invite our fantastic guest all the way from Georgia, USA. Good evening, Mr. Nigel Kinrade.
Good evening. How are you?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's afternoon time here, so it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
So it's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yes. Yep.
Fab. Great. Well, thank you. Really appreciate your time. I know you're busy. The season has kicked off for you already, but there's still some restrictions. So lucky for us that you have to spend some time at home in between races. So we were able to pin you down. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, good.
So we've had a couple more comments already. Bill Davies says, hope everyone is okay. And hello from Andy Jones. Gordon Jameson is tagging Claudine. Thank you. Get your friends involved, everybody. Right. So, Nigel, you are originally from the Isle of Man, but have been based in the US for some time now. And you started off in the Isle of Man TT. So we contacted you once we knew we'd launched Through Your Lens. We've been speaking to you for a while because you're an admin on Mr. Roy Moore and Barry Wood's page, Mountain Memories. So you've been involved with those guys for some time. When did you start helping them out with the page?
Probably about a year ago, I think. It was probably about a year ago. We went into lockdown, and I think over the previous winter, I'd started scanning some of my old NASCAR slides. My basement is full of NASCAR slides from back in the 90s. So I started scanning a few of them, and then we went into lockdown, and probably just over a year ago. And I started scanning some of my TT stuff, and I asked Barry and Sean and Roy, I said, hey, you okay if I post some of this stuff? You know, and they said, yeah, by all means, bring it on. So I spent probably most of last year just scanning, going through a lot of my old archives, just scanning them and putting them on hard drives and stuff, because it was something that I needed to do and I had the perfect opportunity to do it because we were sort of restricted to what we could do. You know, there was no sport going on or anything for, 3 or 4 months. So it gave me a head start to get caught up with some of that stuff.
And lucky for us, because some of the shots you've shared on the group, and it's great because of the stories that then get shared that might be linked to the shots, because there's always someone on the page that has a link of some kind, haven't they, generally to most of the pictures that get posted on there. It's incredible.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right, because some of the stuff I was going through that, and they're sort of scattered all over the place. They're in no sort of order or anything like that. So I was just going through boxes and boxes and pages of slides, and I was coming across some stuff, and it's like, oh, wow, I remember this, 30 years ago or whatever it was, 25 years ago. It's like, I've got to scan this one, I've got to share this with the world. So a lot of my old NASCAR stuff, that just gets sort of aired, if you want to say, on my Instagram page. So I like sharing that with all the back in the 90s stuff and everything like that. It's a lot of that stuff goes on Instagram, which is, it's well received.
So many cool shots. I've been scanning through your account regularly lately, and it's that the nostalgia of those old shots that you're sharing. It's you can feel the time, and the pictures are incredible. Love them. Bit of a fan. All right, so let's go back to the beginning then, Nigel. So you're from the Isle of Man. You moved out to the States. When was it? What year was it? 19?
Yeah, well, my wife Nicola went to college here at Georgia State University here in Atlanta. She had some relatives living here and stuff, so she moved back after she graduated. She met me. We got married, and we moved here in September '91. So that's when we came over here. So we've almost been here 30 years. You know, we're about 6 months shy of being here 30 years. So
fantastic. And you weren't really, you'd shot some of the TT, but you weren't a trained photographer at the time when you moved over there. So tell us a bit about how you got going really with photography, and then found yourself transferring it over to the States when you landed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because when we moved here, I worked as an engineer in Paul Rose Power Station. I was on the engineering staff there, and yeah, it was it wasn't my future, you know. So when we moved over here, it was perfect time to just get headfirst dive in deep into the photography world. I'd done a lot of TT stuff over there, a lot of the motorsport stuff on the Isle of Man. I'd been over to the UK, British Grand Prix, F1 race, MotoGP over there, World Superbikes. I'd been over to Europe, Belgium, Holland, and done MotoGP stuff then. Well, it wasn't MotoGP back then. It was just Grand Prix racing. So, you know, I'd done quite a bit of it. So when we came here, there was this thing called NASCAR here in the Southeast. And they ran like 26, 27 races a year, or 28, 29, I think it was. And it was predominantly based here in the Southeast, in the southern states. And around about that time, they were starting to expand. It was really popular, and they were expanding to like Indianapolis and all these other places they were going to. They started going to Kansas, Kentucky, California was another place they started going. They built a track in Texas, and I picked up on that. And here we are, 30 years. This is my 31st year shooting NASCAR. I'm still here, you know. So
love it. And now you'll get a phone call from Eric Johnson, the communications director, like, Nigel, we need you here, we need you there. It's like,
oh yeah. So I do a lot of work with them, Monster Energy, and with their NASCAR program. They sponsor a couple, 3-4 drivers, up and coming drivers and established drivers. Plus, they were the entitlement sponsor for 3 or 4 years of the NASCAR series. So we had a huge responsibility with them covering their needs there. So, and it's not just me; it's a team of my guys as well who work for me. So.
Great. We've got so many comments here, Nigel. I have to share some with you. So we've got hi from Christine Arthur, John Kashirski from the States. He's saying Nigel, Eric, and Richard post gorgeous photos. Yes, they do. You are right. Roy Moore is in the house. Evening, Nigel. Nice to see what you look like. Kevin Miller says Nigel's hybrid Yank accent is ace. I agree. We did have a question for you, Nigel, actually. I'm just going to scroll back up because we've had quite a few comments here. From Jeremy Gill, he says, good evening, Nigel. Question for you. My photos still aren't that sharp. If I spend some money, what f-stop lens should I get?
It's not the lens. It's just use maybe a faster shutter speed or something like that, Jeremy, or you know, a higher quality scanner as well. I'm scanning my stuff on a Nikon Cool Scan, and it's not a flatbed scanner. I actually feed the slides into the actual scanner, and it gives such a high quality scan on the other side. You know, if you're scanning prints, and you're scanning prints from on a flatbed scanner, they're not going to come out that great. I've found some prints that I've shot, and I've scanned them on a flatbed scanner because I don't know where the negatives ever went to. And you know, I wish I had negatives. You know, if I had the negatives, they would be a lot better, higher quality scan, and I can feed them into the high resolution scanner. But that there was the biggest thing for me, is having the high quality scanner and be able to feed my images into there. So hopefully that helped.
Great, thank you very much. We had a comment from a Facebook user who needs to click on StreamYard being able to access your information, but his comment is that a Georgian Manx accent? Yes, sir.
North Georgia.
Love it.
Yep.
John Kashirski says this season we have to meet if possible for NASCAR. He says we'll get the barbecue going. Yeah.
Yep,
I'll see you there.
Yeah, when we go to Kansas.
Yeah, exactly. Gary Webb says, good evening, Haley and Nigel. Did you get to Daytona this year and see Michael Dunlop race? That was last weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I haven't done the Daytona 200 since, I think the last one I did was like 93 or 94. It was the year Eddie Lawson came back and beat Scott Russell, so it was a long time ago. But I didn't even watch it this year. Unfortunately, the super bikes aren't there running anymore. The Daytona 200 is now like a Super Sport 600 class, and the way their rules go, it's just really, really strange. A lot of young guys can only race in certain classes and stuff, and with being so heavily involved with NASCAR and running my company, it's like I don't have time to watch it anymore. I do watch MotoGP though. I still watch my MotoGP. I got to watch that now that they finally air it again over in this country.
Fab. We've got a nice little someone from MotoGP that you shot. We're going to be sharing in a short while, aren't we? Just one final comment before we move on to your shots. Sean Hogg says, good evening, Nigel. Where's the tie?
I told him I was going to wear a Balacamine tie. So around my head.
Brilliant. On elastic. All right. Well, Nigel, we've got to get onto your shots because there's so many incredible ones that you've shared with us, and we really, really appreciate it. So we're going to get going. We've got a few series that you have shared for us this evening. We're going to start off with a TT, we've got an IndyCar shot, and then we've got a few amazing NASCAR shots as well. So here we are. Tell us the story behind this first shot.
Well, this is the 1992 Formula One TT, and I think it was such a glorious hot day that year, and Hizzy was running on the Norton, the rotary Norton, and I think I parked at the Craig. I thought I'll shoot here. It's like, nah, I didn't want to. Nah, maybe I'll walk up through the heather and up over the hills and stuff, and I'll get up there towards Cates or Keppel. Went all the way up there, and I looked around, and I'm surveying. I got all my gear with me, and it's a hot day, and it's like, nah, I don't know. It's like I'm not going to walk all the way to Windy Corner because I shot Windy Corner the previous year. So I walked over to the 33rd milestone, and I'm looking around before roads closed, and it's like, you know what? I like it from the other side of the road. I like that shot. So with the rocks and everything. So I went, and if you see those, I guess you call them the road bollards at the back there, those plastic stick-up reflectors. I'm actually lying road with my lens just sort of inches above the road surface. I'm actually down below the actual road surface here. And I thought this would be pretty cool. I'll frame it. I've got some blue sky. I've got some greenery in the background, and I've got those rocks, which, to me, that's like tells a quintessential story of the TT, the danger involved and everything, and how close they get to it and stuff. So I'm crouched down there. I'm lying down there. I'm waiting on the first bike, and they come without warning because they're coming pretty fast through there. I'm not sure. I think they're 140, 150 mile an hour, possibly through that turn. And they come into view, and it's like, oh my goodness, click. And I think I missed the first one. It's like, so it's like, oh my goodness, it's like, that's crazy, And so I decided, it's like, this is pretty sketchy to be sort of laying down here. If one of them comes off here, it's like, ooh, that's going to be, and I'm looking around, it's like, where's my escape route? Thankfully I was down, the only thing that was probably showing above the road surface was my shoulders, my head, and my camera lens. So I thought, well, yeah, first lap, I'll do the first lap, and then there'll be a gap between the late start and round on the second lap. So I'm out of here. I'm going to clear up out of here. So I only ever did one lap of of this angle here. But and to be honest, I've never seen anybody else's shots from this angle. I believe now it's probably a restricted area, so you can't go there. So, but yeah, it was. Whoo, it was an interesting shot. They were coming around here, but it was a nice shot of Steve on the north. And this was the F1 race because they had cooling issues in this race with this bike, and he actually finished second, I believe, in this race. I think McCallan beat him by a few seconds on this. They had an overheating issue, and if you notice any of the shots from '92, the senior race, they actually ran the senior TT on the same bike without the front mudguard on to help with the cooling. And everyone knows what happened in the senior race. He just made history there by getting Norton back in the winner's circle there. So, but that was the deal with that picture there. So yeah, it was a one lap and I was out of there too.
Oh, great.
Get the pants off me. All right, so here we go. Bluff Bridge for the 1996 senior TT. And I'd been over getting the traditional shots of guys jumping the bridge. And I need something different. Back then I was working for a bunch of like US based magazines. I had some Spanish and Italian magazines I was supplying images to, and they always want something different. And if you can go to somewhere like Belaf, the Bungalow, Solby, or somewhere like that, or Kurt Michael, and somewhere that you can move around and give you like 5 or 6 different angles. If it's a 5 or 6 lap race, you can pretty much get a lot of different looking stuff for them. So here, I thought I'm going to get my fisheye lens out. So I got my fisheye lens out, and I went over and crouched by the railings at Belaf Bridge, and I looked through the lens, and it's like, oh, yes, this is kind of cool. You got the pub there, you got the fans on the other side, the spectators, you got some greenery, blue sky, clouds, and you got the bridge. So okay, so I could hear bikes coming along, and I'm not sure what lap we were on here. It might have been 3rd, 4th, 5th lap or something, but I was shocked when one bike came into view, and I clicked, and I kept clicking, and I clicked, and I clicked, and I clicked, and I actually got 6 riders heading over Belaf Bridge at the same time in the same frame. And I went, brilliant. Job done here. That's it. That's all I need. So
when does that ever happen? It's amazing.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
So the most amazing, the thing about the TT is with them all starting off, well, they used to start off in pairs and now in singles at 10-second intervals. There's not a lot of images that you'll get that will have anything more than maybe 3 riders in a frame at a time, but this one has like 6 of them all going over. So it was this was pretty iconic. I like this picture. And it tells a story of the some of the scenery of the TT, etc. So that one came out real nice. I was happy with that.
I love that fisheye lens as well.
Yeah, distorts everything. It's great.
We've had some more comments. We've got Barry Wood saying, how's the Manx yank? Roger Barnes saying, evening all. And Gary Webb has put a request in. He said, Nigel, could you send me the negative and the copyright to that Hizzy photograph, please?
There's no negative. That's a slide film. That's a positive right there. There you go.
Great. All right, we've got one more TT one, haven't we? This is another interesting and fantastic angle as well.
Yeah. So here we are. We're at Belaf again. So this was a different angle. Back in the day, I think this was probably 95, and it's the 95 Junior TT. So Michael's on a 600 Honda, I think he was here, or 600 Yamaha, 600cc machine anyway. So having gone through 92 with the Formula One start, that first lap, I'd sort of decided that I'm going to get something different. It's always going to be the first lap. I'll go and do something crazy on the first lap somewhere out of, that might be a little bit sketchy, shall we say. So, and that way, I've always got that gap between the slow riders starting and the fast guys coming around on the second lap to get back to a more orthodox vantage point. So I was walking around the village. I was walking outside of the village, north towards Balacry, I guess. And I turned around, and in this little lane, I lay my camera down on basically a white wall, and I looked through the frame, and I was like, wow, that's perfect. This looks kind of good. I've got the crowd in the background. I've got symmetry of the building there with the 4 windows, and I've got the word slow written on the crest for people heading south driving, you know, for the Bluff Bridge area. So I did the first lap there, and the guys came through, and for some reason Michael was all over the bike fighting it, and he's on the back wheel, and that's what we came out with. And I thought I was really pleased with this. The colors, the helmet pops, the yellow of the bike and everything, the crowd in the background. It really has a lot of pop to it. So I was kind of happy with that frame. I've seen 1 or 2 other frames from other photographers from that area, but that's a favorite spot for me to go.
And it really does look like he's battling with a bike there, doesn't he? His position,
Yeah.
he's moving off the side.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that shot there, I'd always go there for like the super bikes or the 600s or something like that. I never ever shot sidecars over Bluff, which is, you know, I've never ever done them there, you know, but always, you know, the big bikes over Bluff where they're coming out of the village and they're just hitting that crest, you know that a lot of them are going to get light on the front end and pop that wheelie. And to me, that's just it's just a great shot. You know, the lighting was good, the colors have popped and everything, the fans in the background. And the word flow on the race on the roadway.
We've had more comments. John Kashevsky saying, Nigel, incredible. Sean Hogg saying, superb shot, Nigel. And also have an autograph photo from this spot from Tim Leach, one of my favorite Nigel Kinrade photos here in the States. Brilliant.
That's right. I shared one with John, Tim Leach photo. Yeah. So, yep.
Great. All right. So we're going to move on. We just got one from IndyCar, and there's a reason why you've chosen this particular one. Tell us the story behind it.
Yeah, this was, I think it was 93. Excuse me. This is Nigel Mansell, and this is Portland International Raceway up in Oregon. It's a road course up there that IndyCar runs on. And this one, it was just a slowish kind of pan. And it's just nice for the symmetry, the greenery of the foreground, the grass, the Armco barrier in the background, and then just the darkness of the trees and stuff. So this was, at the time, Mansell was the Formula One world champion. So it was quite a coup for him to be Formula One world champion and not defending his crown in Formula One, but being here in the States running IndyCar. And this is when IndyCar was in its heyday, before they had the split with the IRL and the Indy Racing League. This was back when we had world champions. Formula One world champions were running IndyCar at the time. We had Emerson Fittipaldi was still a very good runner. Emerson actually won this race. I think Nigel was second in this race, if I remember correctly. And Mario Andretti was running there as well. And half the field had some sort of form of Grand Prix World Championship F1 experience. Danny Sullivan, Eddie Cheever, Tio Fabi, Raul Basel. There was a whole bunch of these guys, Olivier Grouillard. So the half the IndyCar grid was made up with, you know, ex-Formula One champions or Formula One racers. So it was in the heyday of it. And this is one of those pictures. It's like, yeah, you know, it's pretty cool. Mansell was good. He was good. I think he actually won the title that year, I believe. I think he won like 4 or 5 races as well. But yeah, it's just a nice frame. It's one that I stumbled across when I was in lockdown. And I thought, yeah, throw it in the scanner. Let's see what happens.
Thank you, lockdown. Okay, so we're going to move on now then. So you are classed as, I'm sure you wouldn't feel comfortable saying this, but one of the most sought after NASCAR photographers now. You've established yourself in that particular role. Would you agree, or do you feel uncomfortable agreeing with that?
Yeah. Me and my company, we've well.
Oh, frozen. Might be Wi-Fi issues. Bear with us, everyone. with us. Thanks everyone for your comments. We really appreciate it, and your questions as well. He will be back. We'll just sort his Wi-Fi out. We have some more. We have quite a few NASCAR shots, actually. They're absolutely stunning, and they've all got incredible stories to go with them as well. So we've also got a motocross one to finish off with. So he will be back very soon. Do you have any more questions and comments for him? And if you do want to join as well by the end of the show, if you do have a question for him, we'll see whether we can slot you in and get that question over to him. If you want to join the show, you can actually join the virtual studio. Jeff Exposito, I will try and get these questions off over to Nigel. Let's hope that he's going to click in very soon. So remember, Nigel, he does contribute every day, really. You'll see him pop up on Roy and Barry's page, and check out some of the incredible shots. Yeah, he's left the studio. He's going to click back in and come back in. He won't be too long. Yeah, so keep an eye out for the shots and the posts that he pops on the group and he shares with Barry and Roy. Barry Wood saying, Nige, you supplied many of the photos for the TT review books with Gary Pinchin in 89 and 90. How did they come about? And shame they didn't go on for more years. I will make sure I share that question with him, Barry. Yeah, he did start on the Isle of Man. He started at the TT. When they got the opportunity to move to the States, they jumped at the chance. And as he said, he was an engineer, but he managed to transition and move into photography, stay with photography in the US, and move and be one of the most sought after NASCAR photographers on the planet. So I believe he's back with us in the studio. Wi-Fi working. Hello.
Yeah,
Nigel.
I don't know what happened there. Must have been a little blip or something. Yeah, so I'm back.
Hello, he's back in the room. Okay, fab. So, yeah, you were saying your photography. So Nigel Kinrade photography.
Yes. So we're quite fortunate that NASCAR. We've done the entitlement sponsorship with the Cup Series through Monster. We also do the second feeder series, which is they run on Saturdays the day before for the up and coming drivers. That's known as the Xfinity series. So we do the entitlement sponsor for Xfinity as well, and we provide a lot of images for a lot of the race teams, all the top race teams, Joe Gibbs Racing, Hendrick Motorsports, Penske Racing. So we have a whole portfolio of clients that we're very blessed. So and some of the clients I've been with for over 15, 20 years. So it's a good thing.
I know when I first met you, I was based in California at the time. I'd gone to Fontana for a race. And I remember chatting to Eric Johnson from Monster, and he said, so where are you from? And I said, oh, I'm from just a small place called the Isle of Man. He went, oh, yeah, we do an event over there. Have you met our photographer? He's from the Isle of Man as well. I was like, what? Yeah. And then, yeah, it's so fantastic to meet you. And yeah, it's just great to see a Manxie dominating really and doing so well. It's brilliant.
Yeah, so, no, it's good. It's good.
NASCAR shots then, shall we share? We've got quite a few fantastic ones. So this, tell us a bit more about this one.
This one was, I think we were 1998, I believe it was. This is Dale Earnhardt Jr., son of Dale Earnhardt, who was like a huge NASCAR champion. This was him at Daytona, and this is in the feeder series, which was sponsored by Busch Beer at the time, Busch Series, which is now the Xfinity Series. This was him coming in for a pit stop, and the way they do the pit stops, the guy will come into the pit box, which is that white line around the car, and the jackman has to get over to the other side of the car because they'll change the tires on the passenger side of the car first and then come back round to the driver's side of the car. And with us being the US, the driver's sitting on the opposite side of the vehicle there. So the jackman runs out first, but Dale is going way too fast. He's locked the brakes up, and the jackman's right in the middle of the frame, right in the middle of the front of the car, and Dale plows into him, and as you can see, he managed to get a frame of the jackman coming in to land on the opposite side of the car. So this was, they got back up and finished the pit stop and everything like that, and I think Dale actually went on, and I think he may have had an accident or something. He finished like 37th out of 43 cars in this race. But yeah, it was kind of interesting moment there, and the Jackman was fine. He got back up and finished the pit stop, which but it's quite a cool picture. Now, an interesting side note on this race was a guy who finished 8th in this race was a guy from Texas. His name was Kevin Swans. So everybody with two wheels knowledge will know who Kevin Swans was. So Kevin actually ran a few NASCAR races in the late 90s and stuff. He bought a team, and lack of sponsorship forced him to close his team down. But Kevin actually finished 8th in this race. So
great. Love it. All right, moving on to the next one. Excuse me. We've had a few comments as well, so let me just quickly share that. We did have a question from Barry Wood. He said, Nigel, you supplied many of the photos of the TT review books with Gary Pinchin in 89 and 90. How did they come about? And shame they didn't go on for more years.
Yeah, Gary was the editor for that publication. I think they were... I forget who. I think it was Andrew Marriott or somebody like that. Might have been the publisher, and they did it for 2 years, and it was a great little publication. I don't know what happened. Whether the book industry is very, very strange. I've done a lot of books here with NASCAR, and they'll give you an advance on a co-authorship or something like that. A co-authorship is basically you supply all the images for the book. They'll give you an advance on that, and they'll pay you a decent sum. You'll get a check, and then when people don't buy the books, they go back, and that's all counted against it, returns and stuff. So you don't get any more royalty checks after your advance. Your royalty checks will get smaller and smaller because they count on the returns going back. So the book industry is really, really strange, and it's hard to get into, and that might have been one of the reasons why the TT review books went that way. Gary also Gary was the editor of, I think, Road Racing Monthly was like a monthly newspaper. So he was busy with that, and he also did the books as a side project, I guess. So yeah, they were great books. I still have my copies here. It's unfortunate they went away. It was like an encyclopedia of that year's TT, because it covered all the practices and all that sort of stuff. It had all the facts and figures in there, all the times and stuff. Yeah, I still pick it up now and look at it all. It's great,
Great, good stuff. Wonderful. Okay, so we're moving on to the next NASCAR shot. We have.
Oh. If you look down at the bottom there, you can see the cars. So this is Chicagoland Speedway, which is probably about an hour south of the actual downtown Chicago. And we used to race there in July. This track is actually no longer on our circuit. After the pandemic and stuff, they've actually closed it down this year. We're not going to go back there this year. But we used to start the race probably about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon for a couple of years. We did it. And as the race would wind down to the final laps, we'd get, you'd have the sunset or whatever. This one year, we had a storm roll through or something, and we were just greeted with this just splash of color in the sky. And I forget what year this was. It might be 2007 or 2008, but it's just beautiful. There's no enhancement whatsoever on that sky. That's what we were greeted with that night. And instead of shooting the cars, I was more interested in shooting the sunset. Even though we race 38 weekends a year, it's very, very often that we'll see something like that. Even with our West Coast races, West Coast sunsets are pretty spectacular, but we don't see them that often, primarily down to, when we're racing or whatever. But if we're racing and we get a sunset, it's like, oh, that's primary photography right there. So that one came out kind of nice. Proud of that one.
It's silky, isn't it? The texture of the sky is
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, yeah, it is. It's yeah, you know, it was amazing. It was.
Wow, great. Thank you for that. We've got Barry Wood saying, I never pinched any pictures from those books out of respect. Thank you, Barry.
Play, Barry.
Yeah. All right, so viewing our next picture, our next shot.
All right.
Here we go.
So this was, I forget what year this was. This was the 20th anniversary of a TV movie or a movie called Days of Thunder, which was basically based around stock car racing and NASCAR. And I think it was derived by, I think Tom Cruise actually produced this movie or something like that. It was his idea. And the idea, I believe, came from actually when he went to one of the NASCAR race shops in Charlotte, North Carolina. And he went to Hendrick Motorsports, which is one of my long-term teams that I've worked with for years and years. So Mr. Hendrick is Rick Hendrick. He's the gentleman in the white hat. So this was the 20th anniversary of the release of the movie. And this was the morning of the Daytona 500 in, I forget exactly which year it was. But they told me, they said, come on the backstretch of Daytona. We've got the Days of Thunder car over there. I said, oh, okay. Because Mr. Hendrick's team, Hendrick Motorsports, they built and supplied all the prop stock cars for the movie. So they actually used real race cars and stuff for all the filming purposes and stuff. And I think they had a fleet of 30 or 40 of these cars. So they were crashing them and destroying them. So they were rebuilding them and stuff. And they told me, like, let's come on the backstretch here. We've got two of the Days of Thunder cars over there. So, okay. So I went over the back there. And so what are we going to be doing? Well, Mr. Hendrick and another guy are going to take a couple of laps around, demonstration laps for the fans, and take a couple of laps around the track, and then we'll just park and do some photos afterwards. I said, okay, I'll be over there. So got over there, and lo and behold, it's the star man from the movie was over there, Tom Cruise. So it's like, so you didn't tell me this. It's like, no, it's just top secret. So I was like the only person over there shooting that. You know, it was pretty cool. So now the interesting thing about this was the movie that sponsor on that car, City Chevrolet. Mr. Hendrick, Rick Hendrick, is a car dealer here. He has a bunch of dealerships. I think he has over 120, somewhere 120 to 150 car dealerships that he owns. They're not publicly traded or anything like that. He owns all these dealerships, primarily Chevrolet and GM dealerships. And the very first one he ever bought was City Chevrolet dealership. That's his flagship store, and he bought that in the 80s. And that was the #1 dealership, the first dealership he bought. So the side note on this was, with them providing all these stock cars for the movie, for all the props and everything, they actually put his dealership on that car, and it raced in the movie with that sponsorship on there. So, yep, there it is. So, well, yeah. So that was so that's what Shitty Chevrolet is. And yeah, went over the backstretch, and there's Mr. Tom Cruise and Mr. Hendrick. So
Great. We've got a question here from John Kashirski saying, Nigel, no matter the sport, where is your favorite place to travel and work?
2 different places. Favorite place to work is you know, all the racetracks are great. Favorite place to travel is Europe, Spain, Italy. You know, go there. Yeah, my favorite place to travel and work was is probably, you know, Indianapolis is pretty cool. We go to Indianapolis Motor Speedway just for the historic value of what's gone on there in the past. They run everything there, you know, Formula One, IndyCar, MotoGP, just the history of that place. It's archaic and it's like an antique place, but they've done a lot of improvements recently with it because Roger Penske bought it. So there's a lot of upgrades going on there and stuff. But that's pretty iconic to go to Indianapolis. You know, it's iconic as the Isle of Man.
Yeah. course.
Yeah.
Oh, it's trying. So NASCAR is kind of infamous, really, for its wrecks, for its huge and dramatic wrecks. And you were saying the other day how obviously so many safety measures are in place now, and how they can just walk away from these just spectacular. You just think they're never walking away from that. They're not leaving hospital for a while. But you've got some shots you've shared here of some really brutal. Wow.
Yeah. This is Daytona. So the typical Daytona race is they run with a restrictor plate on the motors, so it reduces the horsepower. So the horsepower is pretty much similar throughout the whole field. And you've got the field of back in the day, these days, this was like 2013 or 14, you have 43 cars. And they're all traveling at over 200 miles an hour, and they're all traveling in these huge packs, just slipstreaming each other. And this is on the final lap of the Busch Series race, or the Nationwide, or Xfinity Series, the feeder series. And this is a guy called Kyle Larson. And he got turned around and backwards. And when they get turned backwards at these speeds, they kind of somewhat go airborne, as you can see. So this is what happened with him. This is heading for the checkered flag. Checkers or wreckers, they call it. And he got airborne, got turned around. The motor came out of the front of the car. You can see all the fluids there. The other car, the hood of the car that hit him, I think, is... the bonnet, should I say, is over the windshield there. So he's just holding on and for all his might. And the catch fence did its job here. These catch fences, you can see it in the background, those gray upright poles. There's a fence that runs between them, a real heavy fence with steel wire that goes across the middle to brace it. And it did its job and caught the car that day. It was kind of crazy.
I see there's been the sensible spectators are sitting a little bit further back.
Yeah, exactly. With it being the Saturday race before the Daytona 500, they don't have the bigger crowds as they would do for the 500. The 500, those seats in the foreground would have been sold out. And, so some people probably got wet with engine fluids and stuff like that, It's crazy. People love to sit there, though. It's mental.
Well, it's like at the TT, isn't it? That's completely mental. There's some of the spots you can watch it in. We're insane for doing it, but it's part of the fun, isn't it?
So this one here was July the 4th weekend event in Daytona again. And this is that huge pack heading for the checkered flag on that last lap. And this race was, we didn't start this race till like a midnight on a Sunday night because we'd had rain. We don't race in the rain with NASCAR on the ovals. They don't have treaded tires. So they run on slicks with no treads. So when it rains, they have to wait for the rain to stop, and then they'll dry the track and we'll race. So we started this race around about midnight, and we finished this race sometime after 3 a.m. on a Monday morning. And this was the last lap. And here you can see the catch fence. And there is actually a car in the fence of the car of Austin Dillon in the fence there. And it just ripped away most of the fence except for the steel bracing that runs parallel with the top of the wall. So it did its job. And as you can see, this is the last lap. Everyone's on their feet to see what happens. And there was a lot more people there for the Cup Series race, which is the main attraction, than what we saw in the previous photo. So they were packed down to the bottom level there. So once again, the fencing did its job right here. And as you can see, there's just a mess of fluids, fencing, sparks, and, millions of dollars of race car destroyed as well.
Wow. So the intensity, you can see the intensity in the shot, but noise-wise, what is it like at a race like this, and even when there's a crash like this as well?
Oh, it's crazy! It's crazy. You have to wear ear protection. It's just so loud. It'd be like standing next to a jet engine working, at an airport, or on an aircraft carrier, watching jets just take off all the time, standing right next to them. One of these is pretty loud, but when you get 43 of them, it's deafening. It is. So, and the thing about Daytona is they run in this huge pack of 40 cars, 43 cars. So they'll go by you, and then you've got like 30 seconds of peace, tranquility. Well, you can still hear them because they're around the backside of the circuit, and then they come by you again, and it's just deafening. But you'll see people in the crowds, and they'll be down low in those seats, and they won't wear any ear protection. It's just crazy. It's like, what are you doing? I don't understand that. Yeah.
Aidan, our producer in the back, who's controlling the pictures for us, said it feels like you can hear it. Totally agree.
Oh, yeah. It
really does. We've got Colin Connolly here, says, Motorhood windshield, you have been over there a while, Nigel. We've got Gary Webb saying, Nigel, where is your favorite place on the TT course to photograph on an ideal day of weather and good conditions? Yeah,
when you get a beautiful day on the island, you've got to go up on the mountain. The mountain is so iconic, and when I was covering it for all the magazines and stuff, I would go to somewhere where I could get multiple angles. One of my favorites was always the bungalow. There's so many different angles you can shoot at the bungalow. It's it's brilliant there. I love the bungalow.
Great, thank you. Okay, so moving on to the next, I believe, is it Jimmy Johnson? I think we're moving on to. No, it's not.
Yeah. So here we go. This is Carl Edwards. Now, Carl Edwards is he's from Missouri, where John Kazierski's from. So, Carl's when Carl wins a race, the thing he does, his little touch that he does, he'll stand on the ledge of the car, the door ledge, and he'll do a backflip. So here we are, we're at Bristol in Tennessee, and this is a little half-mile concrete racetrack. And Carl wins, and I was shooting through a photo hole. It's like, if Carl wins, I know what's going to happen. Carl's going to stand there and do a backflip. So I position myself so I've got this really nice, clean background. There's no distractions in the background. And get ready for Carl, the typical Carl backflip. And Carl wins, gets out of the car, waves to the fans, and just does the backflip. So here he is, sort of mid-backflip. And he's retired now. He walked away from the racing probably 4 or 5 years ago. He just had enough of it. He got out of it. But I'd never, ever seen him not make the landing. So it's kind of interesting. Could you imagine some of the Formula One guys doing this sort of thing? I'm sure in their contracts, it's like, you can't do stuff like that. It's I don't know what would have happened if he'd have broken his ankle or rolled his ankle or something. But that right there is Carl doing a backflip, and it's kind of a cool thing. I miss that now that he's not here. So, but I guess the older he got, he may not have been able to stick those landings. I don't know.
Yeah, no wonder he's retired onto his farm.
Yeah.
We've got a nice comment here from Baker saying, great commentary on those crashes and what happened. VF Ryan says, which would be your favorite ride of the TT and why that particular rider? That's a good question.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of conjecture on this, isn't there? Everyone, I wasn't around when it was the Aggo and Hailwood heydays and stuff like that. Obviously, I saw Hailwood when he made his comeback, and that was great. And back then, it was like, wow, he'd been away for like whatever it was, 7, 8, 9 years or whatever, 10 years maybe. And it's like, wow, that's like half my lifetime. That's a long time, and to come back. But Hizzy was just something else. Steve Hislop. McCallan was just a great rider, fantastic rider. Joey Dunlop, 26 TTs. McGuinness, phenomenal. But to me, it's just Hislop. Hislop and McCallan. They were always on it. McCallan, there's not many pictures you'll see of McCallan where his helmet is above the screen. his face is above the screen. He's not. He's always down, and it's same with Hizzy as well. They were just phenomenal, you know. But you know, Carl Fogarty was another great rider as well, you know. And yeah, it's amazing. Now you've got the new generation of Hickman and Harrison, and what they're doing to the course and lap records and stuff. It's just phenomenal, you know. And they're doing it on basically those super stock bikes with road tires and stuff like that. Some of the speeds they're getting and the lap times, it's amazing. Totally amazing, you know. And then the three wheels, you've got to look at Molly, what Molly did, you know. Fellow Manxman Dave Molyneux, it's just tremendous the amount of TT wins he had, you know.
And still so like humble, isn't he? It's just such a great humble man. It's great.
Yeah.
Great to see.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. It's you know, the sad thing is, like, a lot of these guys who are racing in the 90s, there's not who are winning the TTs. A lot of them are gone now, you know, and it's just, you know, it shows the danger of road racing and stuff like that. It's you know, it's the guys who are still here, you know, McCallan and Nick Jeffries and people. It's like, yeah, those guys, you know, it's amazing the racing they did, and that they're still around and they're still available on some of these Facebook pages like the Mountain Memories one, and Nick will pop on there all the time and give his commentary and thoughts and stuff like that, which you know, it's this day and age to get somebody like that coming on and commenting, and all the other guys who come on and comment as well. It's phenomenal, you know, just to hear their stories and stuff, and some of the minute details they remember from certain races. It's like, how do you remember that? You know, it's crazy. But
when Kenny Arthur was on talking about the cooling system that they fitted, that was incredible.
That was phenomenal. Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. We've got a question here asking from Phil Nelms saying, did Nigel ever meet Murray Walker? TT.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. That was a tragic thing that happened earlier this week, wasn't it? Yeah, he was and he was a two-wheel guy first and foremost. Over, you know, everyone knows him as the F1, BBC's F1 commentator. You know, but you know, he has a lot of history with the Isle of Man and stuff. Yeah, no, I never did meet him. No.
We've got a couple more questions, then we'll move on to the final few photos. We've got. John Kashirski says Carl lives 130 miles away from him. Colin Connolly says, do you have a favorite camera lens combo that you take to events, or does it vary? Great question, Colin.
It varies. If you go to a racetrack that's half a mile or less, our shortest ones are like half a mile. Our biggest ones like Daytona and Talladega, they're over 2.5 miles long. So it's a very combination of stuff you'll need. I primarily just take whatever I've got. If I'm flying, I take less than what I would do if I'm driving my car. If I got my car, I'll just throw everything I can into the back of it. So yeah, so it just whatever the mood takes you. You'll try and vary it up, and you'll be in one spot and you'll try different lenses because it'll give you a different perspective and a different look from that one spot. You know, you can go with a 500mm telephoto lens, give you a nice tight car shot, or you can throw a fisheye on and just get, you know, a blur of the fence and the whole pack of the cars coming around or whatever, all by not even moving in the same spot. So, you know, you vary the lens choice and you get various different angles and perspectives.
Great. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to these. Tell us a bit about it.
So here we are. This was the last lap of the Daytona 500. There's a trait here, isn't there? There's a trend here. This was last year. This is the 2020 Daytona 500, last lap. And the 6 car, which is the car that's inverted there, it looks like it's number 9, but it's not. It's number 6. It's driven by a guy called Ryan Newman, and they call him Rocket Ryan Newman. So he was leading the race. And I'm basically on the roof of Daytona, and I'm across looking down. If I look down to my right, the flag stands there and the start-finish line. So he was leading the race with about 200 or 300 yards to go. He got turned around by a guy called Denny Hamlin, and Denny Hamlin's already out of the frame here to the right. Ryan got turned around. Cars, when they go backwards, they tend to lift. So he started flipping, and he came right down, and the driver's side of Ryan's car where he's sitting is crashing into the top of the car underneath, which is driven by Corey LaJoie. And it was driver side impact, and he's coming down at we're over 205 mile an hour here. So he's coming down on top of Corey. When he got turned around, it probably slowed him down a little bit. So he's probably maybe only 190, 180 mile an hour, but he's coming down on the driver's side, and he hit Corey like that. And they had to cut Ryan out of the car that night. And they gathered around, and they put all these sort of like barriers up around while they were cutting him out of the car. And everyone had feared for the worst on that. But lo and behold, he was fine. No scratches, no nothing. Bit of concussion, I believe, but he walked out of the hospital in Daytona 2 days later, which was totally amazing. So it's pretty horrific. A lot of these finishes for the Daytona 500 seem to happen after dark as well. So the nice thing from photographing, if you could say such a thing, a crash on the last lap of Daytona at night is you get all those sparks, which kind of enhances the image somewhat.
Wow. They are pretty spectacular crashes, aren't they? They're just, you can never imagine they're going to walk out of the hospital 2 days later. It's amazing because, this is my 31st year in this sport. So 36, 38 weekends a year, I'm around these guys. So, I know these guys personally, a lot of these drivers and stuff, and a lot of the drivers are come and gone, and I know the new generation now and stuff. So when something like that happens, you just pray that they're okay. And, thankfully with the safety equipment we have in place now in the sport, it's totally amazing. It's, in 2001 was when we lost Dale Earnhardt. He was killed in the last lap crash at Daytona. You can see him over my shoulder here. That's him up there. So one of the things he always raced with an open face helmet. He was killed. It was a unsuspecting crash. It wasn't a real horrific crash or anything. He hit the wall. His head went forward when he had the impact, and it kind of broke his neck. So following on from that, that's when the Hounds device was created and invented. And I think every form of motorsport now, the Hounds device is like mandatory, and a full face helmet. So, when we lost Dale in that race, the safety equipment that came from that and the knowledge that came from that was immense. So, and I think in Formula One, everywhere now they wear the head and neck restraint system. So, and that all came out of, not a lot of people know this, but it all came out of the accident to Dale, so. Okay, so we have just a few more shots, sadly. This one, we've got to move on to the not that the others weren't arty, but these, we've got a couple of really great art shots. So tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, this is Talladega, and Talladega is like Daytona. It's where they get running in these huge packs of 30, 40 cars, and they're running at over 200, 205, 6 mile an hour. Normally, when these guys practice and they do single car laps, they will be lapping 195 mile an hour. When they all get together, the pack of 40 of them, that increases with the air movement, that increases by 10 mile an hour. So here they are all just running at 205, 206 mile an hour. This one, the effect here is done with a slow shutter speed, probably like an 1/8 of a second or possibly a 15th of a second. I'm not exactly sure what shutter speed it was, but when you press a shutter speed at an 1/8 of a second and the cars are doing over 205 miles an hour, they probably travel in that exposure like 80, 90, maybe 100 feet. So that gives that sort of impression of speed and motion. And then, you know, simply the colors we have in this sport, it's just on a sunny day, it's immense, it is. So you can see on the bottom left, that is the crowd, basically. So that's just a streak of blur there. And up in the blue in the upper right of this frame, it's probably some of the painting that they put on the grass infield for the sponsor logos. So you can see how that's just streaked as well. So this was like 3 or 4 years ago, and with Monster being a client of ours, the 41 car there was sponsored by on the side of the car, but by the 41, you can see the Monster logo there. So this is one that Monster loved, and I think they put it on their Monster Motorsports Instagram page or whatever. So that was just one, but that's the effect that you can get when you really slow down the shutter speed. Everything doesn't have to be razor sharp and tack sharp and see the whites of the eyes or anything. Sometimes you can go to the other extreme and just get this blur and massive colors, which on that day it came out really nice.
Beautiful. All right, so we have one more from this particular section to share with the wonderful viewers. Keep your comments coming in and your questions. We will have time for a couple more questions at the end. So Nigel, fill us in on the setting for this particular shot.
Yeah, this is Daytona. This is the July the 4th weekend in Daytona race. So July the 4th is most people will know as American Independence Day. So we race in Daytona that weekend, and July the 4th in Daytona, it's kind of hot. So but for this July the 4th, the president came in, and he was like the honorary starter and grand marshal. So he came in and he made his presence there. So when the president comes, it's probably an election year or something like that. So he was there. It was George W. Bush. So he was the grand marshal, and I was on the backstretch at Daytona getting the cars coming towards me. And halfway through the race, or towards the end of the race, Air Force One takes off. Now, Daytona, the international airport, the runway runs adjacent to the backstretch of the Daytona International Speedway. So it's quite common that you'll see planes taking off, commercial aircraft and stuff like that. But I happened to be there just at the right time when Air Force One took off. So there we got Air Force One, 747 jumbo jet taking off with the president on it. My only regret on this was if he had waited a few more seconds, possibly we might have had more cars in the frame. But photographers never happy, right?
Oh, I love it. John Grashirski's got another question for you, Nigel. Not sure if you can answer this, but you missed the. Do you miss the Winston Cup series? Because there's been lots of changes in the NASCAR series.
Yeah, so Winston was R.J. Reynolds, a tobacco company based out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So they went away in 2003 and basically went away because of all cigarette advertising and stuff like that. So I actually worked for R.J. Reynolds in the final 3 years of their sponsorship, and they were great people to work with. The thing about R.J. Reynolds was they had they weren't allowed to advertise on TV or in print or anything like that. So they always put on these great events. They spent their money, their advertising budgets, on having these great events for the media and stuff like that. And they would give us jackets and pens and coats and clothing and all this sort of stuff all the time. They were handing stuff out because they had this advertising budget. There was a golden years when R.J. Reynolds was around. So that was Winston. Winston had been involved since the late 70s, I think, or the early 70s. So they'd been the only sponsor that had ever known NASCAR up until 2003. So.
So we're going to move on to a couple of shots here, which involve probably one of the most successful NASCAR drivers, or to be known, most known and most successful MotoGP riders. They come together, both obviously sponsored by Monster Energy. And tell us the story behind this fantastic shot at Charlotte.
Right. Well, this is, as you see, Mr. Rossi. And gentleman with the monster on the right is Kyle Busch. Kyle is probably the guy at the moment in NASCAR and has been for probably the last 9-10 years. He's got over 200 wins in 3 different series, top tier of NASCAR. And I think we'd raced in Kansas City the day before, and we went back and we went to Charlotte. I was told I had to go to Charlotte Motor Speedway for an event. So I actually flew back with the race team, Joe Gibbs Racing, and on their plane, and we went to Charlotte. It was the day after the first, I think it was 2013. It was the first race of the 2013 MotoGP season. It happened the day before at COTA, Circuit of the Americas in Austin. So I get there, and they told me, "Oh yeah, we're going to have a guy's going to test one of Kyle's cars." I said, "Okay, all right." So I get there, and it's Valentino Rossi. It's like, really? It's like, so I'm getting like flashback to my Tom Cruise day. It's like this is Rossi. This is like it's like, so actually the Monster folks wanted to reenact the opening scene, one of the scenes in the Days of Thunder movie, and they were going to have Kyle and Valet talk the parts of Tom Cruise, and I think it was Robert Duvall. But somebody on the crew was kind of smart and said, did we get permission to use these scripts or anything like that? And they said, no. I said, well, we can't really do this and air this. We might get sued by the company. But anyway, that didn't happen. So Valet actually got in the car and tested the car. I think he's tested rallycross before, rally cars, WRC. I think he's tested Formula One Ferraris before. So he tested Kyle's car. And what was quite kind of interesting was they were sitting around while we were waiting, and they were talking. And Valentino was just talking to Kyle about the previous day's NASCAR race. He was going, "Oh yeah. I saw the highlights. And yeah." And it's like, really? And he was just so into NASCAR. So we only had one set of tires for Valentino. So he got in, and if I remember correctly, his lap times would have put him in the top 15 out of the 43 cars that ran in practice for the previous race that we'd had there at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So he was pretty quick, he got the feel of it. And I can always remember him saying that it felt weird going down the front straight because the way the cars are set, they're set up for the turns. So when you're going down the front straight, the steering wheel is kind of like set offset. He said it felt weird, but he was really, really quick on that. And then they had to stop him because the tires were going off. But he was pretty impressive on his stock car debut there. So who knows if he'll ever come back and maybe run one. We did have Kimi Räikkönen ran a few races many years ago.
How cool would it be to see Rossi come and do that? He's such a great story as well.
He's still doing MVP. So
okay, so we've just got one or two more.
Okay.
We've got one quick question though for you before we do come to the final couple of shots. Phil Nelm says, "What drew Nigel to photography?" Good question, Phil.
Yeah, I think just living on the Isle of Man and being, subjected to the various disciplines of motorsport. There's always motorsport going on in the Isle of Man, whether it's at Derby or karting or rallying, or back then they used to have those hill climbs as well. They'd run the hill climb from Hilbury up to Case Cottage and stuff. So there was a lot of various disciplines of motorsport going on, motocross and trials riding and stuff. So, motorsport and photography are just something that meshed together for me.
Great. And why did you first pick the camera up? Did it come from somebody, or was it just?
I think I bought one on my 21st birthday with some money I got. So I'm going to try and figure this out. It's like I had no idea what I was doing. I'm not professionally trained in photography or anything. I just learned by my mistakes, just expensive mistakes, going and putting film in and exposing it and going and getting it processed and looking at the prints. And it's like, oh, that was a waste of money, you know. and somewhere down the road it clicked, you know. It got a little bit better and it clicked, and I figured out, I knew what I was doing and stuff. But back in the day it was all film. Now it's digital. You put a digital card in a camera and away you go, and you reuse it. You know, if the images don't look good, it's like you delete them and just keep shooting, you know. I think it's a lot easier now than what it was back then, you know.
So we got your final shot then, and that is going back to motocross. So tell us the backstory behind this. This is absolutely, I think this might be my favorite one. Absolutely stunning.
So I think this was like December 2004, I believe. And I get a call from a gentleman we mentioned, Eric Johnson, who does a lot of, back then he wasn't working with Monster, he was working with a lot of freelance companies like No Fear and Oakley and stuff. And Eric called me and says, hey, I've got a job for you. I want you to go down South Georgia. How far is Cairo, Georgia from you? Or they call it Cairo here. Cairo, Georgia. I said, I've never heard of it. I'll look it up on the map. I said, it's probably about 3 or 4 hours drive or something. Or I can fly into Tallahassee and it's close to there in Florida. So he goes, yeah, let's do that. So flew down there, and I was going to end up going to Ricky Carmichael's motocross ranch. So Ricky Carmichael is multi-supercross champion. He's like, the Michael Schumacher or the Lewis Hamilton of motocross here in the US. He's just multi-champion. And he, you know, he's got video games named after him. And he is just the guy in motocross in the US. So I was going there. Now, Ricky has this big farm in South Georgia, in Cairo, Georgia, and it's covered with these jumps and stuff. And it's not your typical farm. It's where he goes and practices and trains and tests and stuff. So we went there. I landed at the airport. There's a lady there. It's Ricky's mom. She goes, you're going to follow me. So I get in my rental car. I follow her. About 30 minutes later, we're in the middle of nowhere, and we end up and we're at this motocross track. So there's Ricky. And the next thing I know, along comes the guy with number 58 on his back there. And it's Juan Pablo Montoya. So it's like, holy crap, what are you doing here? So they were doing a feature. It was going to be a ride along. He's going to do some motocross stuff. But the thing here was, this was between Montoya's Williams contract and his, I think the following year he was moving to the Williams team. So we shouldn't have really had him riding motocross bikes, but it was, he promised to just take it easy. And so we were fine with that. So, and he's actually sitting on one of these huge mounds that Ricky puts out, they build. You can see the tops of the trees there. So if I would have backed up and been further away, he's actually sitting 30, 40 feet up on top of this flattened out mound that Ricky would use for jumping. And then Ricky's coming the other way, and he's jumping over the top of Juan. And Juan's just looking at him. So Ricky there is probably like 60 feet up in the air, and Juan is just going, what is this guy doing? So, but that was a good day out, and that was one of those special occasions that will stick for me forever. And the interesting thing was, Juan actually fell off. And he was staggering around, and he was holding his back. So I don't know whether he twisted his back or something. He landed on his back or his tailbone when he fell off. And everyone was kind of looking at each other and going, uh-oh, he's just got this McLaren drive, you know. It's like, so they said to me, did you get any of that? I said, no. He says, good. Keep that under wraps. So it's like, so that's what happened there. So that was an interesting day. So it's the things that go on. So, you know, you go back and you think about Carl Edwards doing those backflips and stuff, and we come to this picture, and it's like an F1 guy, current F1 star, and he's out there riding motocross bikes. I'm sure nowadays these guys are not allowed to go skiing, jet skiing, motorboat, you know, anything like this, motocross riding. I'm sure none of them are allowed to do that. It's all written into the contracts. They got so much money tied up with these guys. So I'm sure in the day back then that it was probably written into one's contracts that he wasn't allowed to go motocross riding and stuff. But that was pretty cool. And Juan actually came in after his F1 career. He moved to NASCAR, and he raced in NASCAR for a number of years. Actually won a couple of races. So he is an all-round top motorsports guy. Various disciplines and stuff like that. Ricky Carmichael actually raced NASCAR for a couple of years as well. So in the truck series. So there's a NASCAR connection with both of them there.
Nigel, you've had so many epic experiences over the years, and your photography has brought you to some insane races and events and worked with so many successful people from all walks of championships and series. Can you pinpoint a time when you've really had to pinch yourself and you've thought, wow, what am I doing? How did this happen?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's been so many. I probably shot over 1,100 NASCAR races. NASCAR weekends. It's the TT is always something special. We went back, I think 2006 or 7 with our kids for the TT week. I think it might have been 2006, and the kids were just blown away by it. So their first exposure to something like that was pretty memorable. That was pretty cool seeing them, because they'd heard about it, and it's like they were young and they were like, wow, this is so cool. This is the TT, So that the TT has always been something special. Yeah, it always has, MotoGP is always good. I went to, I think it was the first MotoGP they had at Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the pouring rain. That was that was way cool. That was really cool as well, seeing those guys battle it out in the rain and stuff. So but there's been a lot,
And there's going to be so many more. So it's been an honor, an absolute honor to have you on the show. And I can also say that you photographed me, not that it was meant to happen, but it was crazy time meeting you at that racetrack, and really blew me away to see you in the midst of it and doing what you're doing. And you see so many more events and successes ahead of you, and we really, really are proud to have you on the show, and you sharing your shots with there's me in Victory Lane. Hello. Fantastic. Such a great event to try out and check out, really. So Nigel, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, and even more so sharing all of that collection was just blew me away. So many great comments here as well. Ian Anthony Huntley says, hi Nigel. Ian, you can watch it back, don't you worry, it's going to be available there for a replay. And Brian Spooner, final question, would you sooner be in the States or in the Isle of Man?
Well, Brian, it was 78 degrees here over the weekend. Today it's in the upper 40s and it's been raining, so I feel like I'm in the Isle of Man today, or the UK today. But I've 31 years been here, so it's love the weather here, and So I miss the Isle of Man, I miss the UK, but when I first moved here, it was hard to keep in touch with the UK, what was going on in the UK with football, anything like that, British sports. There wasn't much of an internet. There was no cell phones, or there was no Zooms or anything like that, or FaceTime. Now it's everywhere. It's like I can be on the BBC website reading all the football scores or watching the games or whatever, and it's like I could be home. So it's a lot easier now than what it was when we first moved over here. We were isolated when we first moved over here, but we've got by. We've evolved.
Well, I look forward to seeing what's next for you. So you are racing this weekend, aren't you? So tell us where you're heading to next.
This weekend is in Atlanta here, so it's a home race weekend for us. So we go to Atlanta this weekend. Then we go to Bristol, Tennessee, which was where the picture of Carl Edwards doing the black backflip on the concrete track was. So that's there next week. But the interesting twist to that race next week is they've covered it in dirt and mud and soil. So it's it's going to be a dirt track. So the NASCAR cars are going to run on dirt next week in Bristol. I think it's like the first time in over 50 years they've ever done that. So that's going to be kind of interesting. So I'll be taking dirty clothes with me.
I've just been asked a question. So from the Spirit Motorsport, what football team do you support? Obviously got to comment about the group.
I don't show it.
Oh. Why do you support, what drew you to that team?
Because everybody in the Isle of Man supports Liverpool or Manchester United or Everton or Leeds or Man City. So somewhere different, right?
Good on you. Good on you. And that's a World Cup shirt behind you, isn't it, that you've got?
Yeah, that's a signed Brazilian shirt from the 2002 World Cup in, I think that was Japan and Korea, I believe. So, yeah. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Christine said, thanks for another great show, Haley and Nigel, for your photos. Thank you, Christine, for tuning in. Nigel, thank you so much. We've kept you so long, but we've really considered all of the stories.
It's been a blast. It's good, you know.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for all your contributions as well on the Roy and Barry page. We absolutely love that group and that community as well. So thank you for contributing to the Spirit Motorsport community. We look forward to seeing you on here again soon, and have a great weekend this weekend at your home race.
Yes, thank you. And the Instagram for the more NASCAR pictures is @Nigel Kinrade. So go there, take a look.
Yeah, everyone head over, follow. Thank you, Nigel. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Haley. Thanks
so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, for staying with us and contributing in your questions and your comments. We've absolutely loved it. Wow, what a collection of shots. I feel really blessed and honored to not only have those shots shared with the community, but also the stories as well. Sean Hogg said, great show, Nigel. Barry Wood, fantastic program. Good to see you, Nigel. John Kashirski said, good, Nigel. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, every single one of you. And we will be back again very shortly. But next week, we will be with the great Roy Moore and Barry Wood once again for our next episode of Mountain Memories. But for now, this was Through Your Lens. I'm Haley Coxon on the Spirit of Motorsport TV.